Kensington, we are so excited to get to be the ones to welcome you to the midweek service tonight. My name is Tracy Henkel. I'm the Clinton Township Discipleship Director. And
I'm Tracy's husband, Jim, and I lead the men's ministry on Tuesday night, our Kensington Men Group. Actually, I'm really excited to be doing this in front of the fireplace.
Well, you are?
Yeah.
Why is that?
See, Dave and Ann are giving the message tonight. So if you remember, the last two times that Dave and Ann had talked together, they were sitting in front of their fireplace. Mm-hmm. So I think Dave and Ann are so awesome that I want to be just like Dave and Ann.
Well, you do have one thing in common. Yeah. Well, the series tonight is called Life Interrupted, and Dave and Ann are going to be talking about how the impact on the families that this interruption has had. And I know that everybody's families are a little different, and mine and Jim's is a blended family of adult kids, and we are trying to figure out this new kind of normal, just like you guys are.
Oh my gosh, new kind of normal. We're trying to figure out what life is like right now. It's like, so we don't have to deal with homeschooling.
Nope.
Home dance classes, mm-hmm. or even kids bugging us to try to convince us that ice cream is okay for breakfast.
But you think it is okay?
Well, for me, it is. Yeah, definitely. So, but we are trying to figure out what our new normal is mm-hmm. when it comes to working at home, and also what it looks like with dealing with a pay cut.
Yeah, that's hard too. And babysitting is a brand new kind of normal for us. We're trying to help with keeping our new granddaughter out of daycare. And so a couple times a week, I get to spend the day over there. And I'll tell you what, that is definitely a new kind of normal for this grandma. So, things felt like they were going to be temporary, I think, at the beginning of this. And now I think we can all say 4 weeks in, it doesn't feel so temporary. And we feel like people are looking for more than just the service, which is awesome that we can experience that virtually online. But I think they're looking for more connection and more community.
It's Danny Cox mentioned in the Sunday message that there were over 38,000 devices logged in to watch our Easter services. And Kensington is actually seeing huge numbers of people logging in to even watch our regular Sunday services and our midweek service.
So great.
So what that means is that every device that's logged in is multiple people. That's a lot of people that are looking at to explore who God is, and maybe even for the first time.
Yeah. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're exploring for the first time, and maybe you're looking for more than a service to connect. We think that maybe you are. We think that maybe a lot of people are. So in response to that, our discipleship team is working furiously to train up new leaders and set up new groups online, virtual groups, of course. And we want you to know that we're going to be loading that page up over the next couple of weeks. And you can find out more about those virtual groups on our website, kensingtonchurch.org/group. So keep checking back if you don't see what you're looking for. We are going to have all kinds of different kind of virtual groups for you to check out and experience group life for maybe the first time. So now
we're going to transition into the actual midweek service.
And Matthias and Audrey are going to lead us in worship. And one of my favorite things about worship is singing along. And we encourage you to do that because when you say the words out loud about the songs that are about Jesus, about God, it helps you to remember who he is. And singing along is a great way to do that.
Oh, come on, Tracy. You have to be honest. When it comes to me singing along, I usually don't sing in key.
It's true, he doesn't, but we don't mind. Enjoy the service, and we'll see you after.
I was lost with a broken heart. You picked me up, now I'm set apart. From the ash I am born again, forever safe in the Savior's hands. You are more than my words can say. I'll follow you, Lord, for all my days. Fix my eyes following your ways. Forever free in unending grace. More we sing, 'cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, your love, never ending. Oh, you are alive in us, nothing can take your place. You are all we need. darkest night. Let your love be my shining light, breaking chains that were holding me. You sent your son down to set me free. Everything of this world will fade. I'm pressing on till I see your face. I will live that your will be done. I won't stop till your kingdom comes. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Whoa. Whoa. Oh, 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 oh. Whoa. So you are, 'cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher. 'Cause you are my freedom. We lift you higher, lift you higher. Your love never ending. Oh, oh, oh. You are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Because you are alive in us. Nothing can take your place. You are all we need. Your love has set us free. Whoa. Whoa. Oh, oh. Come on, we sing Father of Kindness. Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness. You have filled me with peace. Giver of mercy, you're my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing faithful, faithful you are, faithful forever you will be, faithful you are. Sing all your promises are yes and amen. All your promises are yes and amen. Yeah. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me near. You pulled me from the ashes. You have broken every curse. Blessed is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest. Sing it. In your promises, my confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises and my confidence. Come on, we say, is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Oh, I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithful. You are faithful. Faithful. You are faithful. Forever you will be. Oh, faithful. You are. Oh, all your promises are yes and amen. 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 Father God, we just come before you tonight to say thanking you so much that all of your promises are yes and amen. That we know that we can trust in every word that you say, because not a single word that you speak will fall void. Thank you for continuing to love us, protect us, guide us, and strengthen us during this difficult time. We love you, Jesus. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. Like the rushing wind, would you breathe within my heart, my heart? And through the raging storm, would you hold me in your arms, your arms? 'Cause I need you. Oh, I need you. I need your love like I need water. sing out your praise. 'Cause I need you. Oh, I need you. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside of my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over, Jesus, draw me closer to your heart, to your heart, to your heart. Closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything, closer than my every breath, closer than my every step, closer than the song I sing, closer than anything, than anything. I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside of my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over, Jesus, draw me closer. Oh, I need your love like I need water. I need your love like I need breath inside of my lungs, burning my heart just like a fire. Come and take me over, Jesus, draw me closer to your heart. Oh, Jesus, draw me closer to your heart.
Tell you what, I love that song, and
Me too.
I really love when Matthias sings it.
Isn't his voice amazing?
It's amazing, even from his family room or wherever he is singing that thing. I remember playing bass on that a couple months ago at Orion when Matthias was singing it. It was so beautiful. I almost lost my place just listening to him. But the words are perfect. Jesus, draw us closer. And I think that's what he's doing during this pandemic.
I think that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. I mean, we're all separated. We're in different homes. We're not even in a building together, and yet Jesus is drawing us. And I think even the world, people that don't normally go to church, are being drawn closer to Jesus. And so as Ann and I get to start tonight a midweek message.
Hey, and we put on jeans.
Yeah, this is the first time we haven't been in sweats. I actually have real pants on.
I washed my hair.
No shoes, though. Nobody wears shoes, right? And we got our eggs. We heard people said we didn't have eggs in our set on Easter. So here you go. We got our eggs for you.
They should be open now.
Because tonight we're going to talk about family and being hunkered down together and how it can lead to some conflict.
Wait. So why family?
Well, because we're all sort of sitting in our homes with family. See how she does this? She interrupts me, and I can't go where I'm supposed to go. We'll talk about that in a second. First thing I want to do, we always do this usually first at midweek, is take our offering. And I just want to say this about our offering. Thank you. I mean that. Thank you. You are still giving. Many of you, I know some of you have lost jobs or been furloughed, and we understand you can't give right now, and you're praying for God to provide for you. And let me tell you, the people that are giving, that can give, it's such a beautiful thing that we can do this digitally. Just go to our app, Kensington app. It's a beautiful place to do it, or you can text 7797 to Kensington and give that way. But here's the thing. That money doesn't just stay here. It is actually blessing first responders, hospitals, even some people in our own congregation who are struggling financially. We've been able to bless them. There's so many stories about that. And that's because you and I give. And I just want to say thanks.
I think that's been one of the most encouraging things to us is right now, because there's such a need in our cities, in our state. And it feels good, doesn't it, just to know that a lot of those needs are being met through you. So thank you.
Thanks for doing that. So as Ann said, she interrupted me. We are in a series called Life Interrupted. And one of the interruptions that happens in family and in lockdown, and you may be even sitting at home alone, but a lot of us are surrounded by our family, is we didn't expect this interruption to happen. But remember, we started this series 3 weeks ago saying, and don't forget this, an interruption is an invitation from God to trust Him. An interruption is an invitation from God to trust Him. And it's really true, so we get to trust Him. So one of the interruptions that happens in families is a thing we call conflict.
You guys, have you spent this much time with your family ever? Like ever. You're with your family so much if you're living with someone else. It's just a constant, like, whoa, we really see each other's flaws and the weirdness. And if you're stressed, it just kind of all comes out.
And you start to bug each other. I mean, we never bugged each other. But you start to bug each other and you get on each other. And here's something that's really common in families, and especially in stay-at-home shelter families. Conflict. Conflict is normal. It's happening in your family. Yes, it's happening in our family. And so we decided, let's do a family midweek, when the interruption hits home or hits your family. It's like nobody wakes up and says, I think I'm going to have a conflict today with somebody in my family. No, that comes like an interruption. You don't see it coming, or you may sort of see it coming, but then
you may wake up with like this angst in your soul of worry or fear, or your family's bugging you, or your kids have been up all night, and it just kind of, that affects everything else in our lives.
And so we want to talk about that. And you've heard us say this before in our Vertical Marriage series, in this Vertical Marriage small group, and even in our book, a simple statement about conflict. And it's basically this simple. It's this: the health and future of your relationship is determined by how you handle conflict. And that rhymes. Relationship, conflict. Anyway, it's really true.
And even if you're not married, this still really matters with your relationship with your family, with your parents, with your friends. But you may be married someday or remarried someday. So I think it's really, for Dave and I, we talk about this a lot, but to apply it continually, and we're continually growing and learning it.
In the workplace, in the neighborhood, in a team, in an office, it applies everywhere. And so we thought, let's apply this one to the family. So we'll take that same phrase and say it this way. And I just wrote this morning, so I don't know how this is going to work. That says the health and future of your family is determined by how you do the laundry. Family laundry sort of goes together. But I mean, in a family, you got to do it doesn't. But you got to do the laundry. And so doing conflict is like doing the laundry. It's something you got to do every week, sometimes every day.
Do you do the laundry?
I do the laundry all the time. And I think conflict's like the laundry. You get dirty, you get wrinkled, you get messy, and you get thrown in the dryer and it bumps around. Anyway, let's talk about how to do conflict well. And so we're going to take you to the book of James in the New Testament, tucked away in the very back of your New Testament.
So-
James was a half-brother of Jesus. Think about this. He grows up with a brother who's perfect. I mean, talk about a complex.
But
Your brother has the Messiah complex, and he is the Messiah. But then he writes this really practical letter to a church that's divided
and under
because of conflict.
Yeah, the church is under so much strain, conflict, persecution. So pull out your Bibles, and I'm going to read this. It starts in James 4, verse.
And I would say this, as Ann reads this is something to do as a family, right here.
Yeah.
Pull out one of these. I know it's, it's paper. People don't even know what this thing is. I mean, we usually read it digitally, but pull it out, maybe even right now, open to the book of James toward the back of your New Testament and read this together. And when we're done tonight, read it again and talk about it.
Okay, and I want you to listen for a certain word that is repeated over and over and over and see if you can kind of detect what that word is. James says this, "What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You want something, but don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. You quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask God.
You gotta ask God.
When you ask, you do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend, what does it say? That you may spend what you get on your pleasures. You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred toward God?"
Yeah, and I tell you what, did you notice the word that's in there?
You.
14 times in 3 verses, the word you is mentioned. And so here's what you find out. And James is asking a real important question about conflict. Where is this coming from? Why are we fighting? Why are we quarreling? That's where he starts.
Which is a great question.
Yeah, and I tell you, most of the time when we ask that question, why are we fighting? You know what we think? Because of her.
You.
Because of him. We think it's because of the person we're in the conflict with. And what does James say? The problem is you. In fact, I wrote down in my notes a truth bomb. At the center of every conflict is you, is me. I mean, that's the common denominator. The conflict has you and me in it. And so it isn't just the other person's problem. We have a problem as well. That's why James mentions you 14 times.
But I would never say that. If Dave and I are struggling and somebody asks, what is the problem? I would say, oh, I know exactly what it is. It's Dave. It's you. I wouldn't think it's me.
Or it's even like, it's the fact that I got married or I'm in this situation.
Or we lost a job.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
And I remember Ann has shared this many times, Tim Keller quote about marriage reveals something in you.
This was so big for me because when our kids were little especially, I remember thinking in my head, I didn't say it thankfully, but I remember thinking like, my kids are making me crazy. I thought I have never displayed this kind of anger. And I thought my kids are doing this to me. But then I read Keller's book and he said marriage, and we could say this as family, is like a 2-ton truck going over a bridge. And that bridge has a bunch of cracks in it, but you've never seen the cracks until that 2-ton truck is sitting on the bridge.
Stress.
And then the cracks are exposed. And that's what marriage, family, stress does. It exposes the cracks in me. Like those cracks and that anger was already there. It's just the kids and the turmoil and the stress just revealed the cracks in me. And so my prayer became, God, what do you need to change in me?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Ann and I shared parts of this message a couple months ago at Orion. And one of the stories that I remember taking place is a few months ago, back in November, we did a Funny How Marriage Works night with Michael Jr., the comedian. So he was going to come in. He's a friend of ours, and he said, I'd love to do this with you. So he came to Orion, and we did a date night with Michael bringing the funny, as he says, the humor. He's a comedian. And then Ann and I are going to do this talk. Well, the interesting thing about that weekend, it was a Saturday night, and Ann had been with her mom and dad the whole week. They were in assisted living. Her mom was dying at the time, and she has since passed.
Yeah, my dad was really sick, and this was the first time that I visited my mom, and she's 90, that I visited my mom, and she had no idea who I was. And so when I got home, I think I got home Friday night,
Yeah.
and we were going to speak Saturday, I was, when you're just like, your heart's heavy, I felt like I was grieving, I was sad. And Dave's like, come on, we need to get this going. We need to get on this talk. We need to make this great.
I mean, I was an idiot. I was literally following her around the house because this is Saturday morning. We haven't looked at our notes. This thing is sold out. I'm feeling pressure. We got to nail this. And she is depleted. She is worn out. She is
Depressed.
Discouraged
Yeah.
from the reality of her mom and dad. And as I said, her mom ended up passing away about 2 or 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here I am. I'm literally walking in the family room like, come on, we got to kill this tonight. You got to get in here. Let's talk about this.
I think your words were, you need to suck it up.
Yeah, suck it up. We can do this. And she just walks away, and I'm just almost yelling at her. And then it hits me. Because I'm mad at her because she's not getting on the agenda with me. And then it hit me. The problem's not her. The problem's me, you idiot. I mean, how could I not understand where she was emotionally and trying to demand to get something out of her that she just couldn't give in that moment? And James says, why do you have quarrels and fights among you? Isn't it the desires in you? Yeah, that was me. I had this desire that we would do this, and it wasn't being met. And that's where anger and conflict comes from. And I had to step back and go, this is not her problem. This is my problem. And I need to get my attitude right so that we can do this. And we did. And it was, it ended up being a great night.
And it was so interesting when Dave finally said, I'm so sorry. Tell me what you're feeling. It was so great because I just kind of let loose of all the things I was feeling. And when I got that out, I was like, okay, I feel better. Like I can think about this now. But I just needed it. And maybe the word of desire, you could almost flip that too with your expectations of what you want your spouse or your kids to be like.
Yeah. And it's really interesting when you go back to James chapter 4, there weren't chapter breaks when James wrote this letter. So you go back one verse before chapter 4, verse 1, at the end of chapter 3, verse 16, James sort of gives you some real insight to where our conflict comes from. Look at this. He says in verse 16, he says, for where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. You know what he's getting at? Here, I'll give it to you. Write this down. And kids, I hope you're taking notes. Family, I hope you're talking about this afterwards. Write this down. There is no peace on the outside without peace on the inside. See, here's what he's saying. You're having quarrels and fights among you. This is, in James' situation, a church, but this could be a family, it could be a neighborhood, it could be a Detroit Lions locker room. That happen a lot. Anyway, it could be anywhere, but he's saying, you don't have peace out there. And he goes, you know why? There's envy and strife in here. So there's no peace going to ever happen outside of ourselves if there isn't first peace inside ourselves. In other words, you could say, you create the world around you that's within you. Good friend of mine said that. You can create the world around you that's within you. So here's the question. How do we get peace in here?
Yeah, what's going on in the world within you?
Yeah, how do we change what's in here? And James tells us. The very next verse, verse 17, right before chapter 4, he says, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure.
What's that mean?
Well, think about this. Where's he pointing us? Vertical. Go vertical. The wisdom that comes from God, from heaven, is pure. He says the only way you're going to get purity in here is you got to get it from there. You can't manufacture that ourselves, even by trying to get a relationship that works. It's got to come supernaturally from outside of us, inside of us, so that we can create this outside. Look what he says. He says, the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure. Then he goes on to say, this is what's going to happen as a result. Then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere, peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. It's such a beautiful picture. James is getting so practical. If you want peace in your family, you can't demand it from your family. You have to go vertical to Jesus and say, Jesus, I don't have peace. Can you put purity and sincerity and submissive heart in me so that I can then serve my spouse, serve my kids, serve my neighbor the way you, as an overflow of what you put in me?
And I'm going to be honest. I think when Dave and I have struggled in our marriage, I haven't gone first to Jesus. You know where I go? Oftentimes, I go to my friends first and I just vent it all out. And sometimes they're great. They're like, I'm just going to pray for you. But sometimes they can be like, yeah, Dave's an idiot. What is he thinking?
I can't believe they ever say that. They're right.
It's so good though. Instead of picking up the phone, instead of going somewhere else, to go to God first and surrender. That's the biggest thing we can do, of taking that self-control and say, God, I'm going to go to you first.
And so here's what we want to do. We got 15 minutes left, and we got to do this fast. So we're going to give you 6 sort of steps, skills, attitudes to do conflict well in your family. In fact, family is a key word here, and this, again, applies whether you're in a family or not. But we're going to use the word family as an acrostic, as an acronym, FAMILY. There are 6. And here's what, write this down. And this is going to come up on a screen. And I tell you right now, take a picture of this and then pull it out and look at this and try and do this the next time you're in a conflict. You might be in one right now. This will really help. There's a lot of things we could cover. We're only going to cover 6. But we just call it do the family laundry. In other words, do conflict. It's time to clean up things. All right? Do the family laundry.
So here's the first one.
Family.
The F is first start soft.
And we're going to explain each one of these. Right
Yeah.
now, you're like, what in the world does that mean? Let me just say them first, and then we'll do them. First, start soft. Attitude is everything. Meet emotion with emotion. I, not you. Life words, not death. Yield to Jesus. So you got it? Now you're like, what in the world does those mean? Let's start with the first one. First, the F stands for first, start soft. There's a guy, we've talked about him many times here, John Gottman, a marriage expert, writer, guru, who studies couples, watches them fight for 15 minutes, and tells you, he calls them the masters will make it, the disasters won't make it. And he says, I can tell you whether they're going to make it or not in 15 minutes by watching the way they fight. That's why the health and future relationships determined by how you handle conflict. And he's 91% accurate. 15 minutes. So what's he look for? Here's one of the things Gottman says. He says 94% of the time, the way a conflict starts determines how it will end.
That's huge.
Yeah, huge.
Because most of us, we usually bottle things up, and then it comes out and it's out in like an explosion or a volcano. And if it starts like that, we've seen this and experienced it, it usually ends like that. It just doesn't end well. And so how do we do that? How do we start soft?
And so you got to step away sometimes when the anger is rising. We're going to talk about this on another point, but when the anger is rising, you're in trouble. And so you have to start soft.
I would say if your emotions are high, don't enter the conflict until you have them under control.
And I know that sounds crazy, like I can't get them under control. Yeah, you can. In fact, one of the verses that Ann and I've taught many times in our vertical marriage stuff is Proverbs 51. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. So if one of you is escalating or your kid is escalating and you escalate, you're in a fight.
Yeah.
If one of them's escalating and you de-escalate, you start soft, first start soft, guess what? This person can't stay up here. If they do, they're just crazy. They have to come down, and then everything changes. I've shared this many times. One of the favorite illustrations of this, I was pulling out on Adams Road in my subdivision one early morning. All these cars were coming. I couldn't get out. Finally, I see a brake, and I jump out, and there's a car that I cut off. I didn't realize I sort of cut him off, but he gets right on my bumper. You ever done this? And he's like, right on my bumper. I'm looking in the mirror. It's a cold day, so the windows are up, and I can see hand gestures. I can see him screaming at me. He's all mad at me. I feel bad, but what can I do? We're behind each other. Finally, we get to a light where there's another lane, and he pulls over the lane beside me. And I didn't even want to look over there because I could see in my periphery, he's like screaming at me, and he's just trying to get me to look. So finally, I just look over there, and he is in his window screaming. I can hear him, and all I do is this. I look at him, and I go, hey man, sorry, my bad. He couldn't even hear me. He could just see my words, sorry, my bad. And he goes like, he goes, oh, hey, no problem. See ya. And I thought, what just happened? A gentle answer turns away wrath, even in road rage. If that would happen in your family, somebody's escalating, somebody de-escalates. Now, who should de-escalate first? Emerson Egbert says, whoever is most mature make the first move. So whoever's got maturity to first start soft, sometimes you have to walk out of the room and come back.
Yeah. I would
in 10 seconds.
say go to God and ask him how to start. Instead of just being so emotional and letting it just fly. Some people say, I don't want to do that. That seems fake. I think that is just wise.
Yeah.
Because you're not using your words flippantly.
It's interesting. Gottman said that in a conflict, when especially men tend to escalate quickly, and that could be either way, but he says this, men rapidly escalate physiologically and avoid conflict to calm themselves down. Look at this. He says, therefore, during a conflict, Gottman says, if a man's heart rate goes above 95, the next word out of his mouth is going to be really stupid. So it's like you gotta start.
Well, and you know
soft.
how they tested this is it says when Gottman, when they were testing couples, he said when the heart rate, when they were with couples,
had heart pulse rates on
so
them.
they're monitoring it. When the heart rate went over 100, they said, "Oh, we're sorry, our recording equipment is malfunctioning. And
Need to take a break.
Yeah, and so then they'd have this break, and they wouldn't fight, and then they'd say, "Okay, you can start." But because they had that pause, when they restarted, it was totally different.
They said it was like a different couple now with sitting down. So sometimes you just need to step away, let your heart rate come down, and try again. And here's the second one. First starts soft. The second one is attitude is everything. It really is. We're talking a lot about skills here, but it's really about attitude. And again, this is a whole course that we're going to give you in like 3 minutes. But Gottman talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. He calls them the 4 attitudes that he looks for that determines whether they're going to make it or not. And here they are. Write these down.
These kill
couple.
They kill whoever's having the conflict, and they just demoralize the person.
First one he calls criticism, and I wrote a quick little definition suggesting that the other person is defective. You're critical, but you think they're defective. Defensiveness, not open to hearing how to grow, so you won't listen to anybody's helpful things.
Contempt is feeling superior to the other person. And then stonewalling is when a person physically or emotionally just shuts down. They won't even engage.
Those are the 4 horsemen. They kill.
We did all of them. We still do sometimes.
We do. I mean, think about this. He even had in his book, criticism is saying to your spouse or your family member, I didn't like it when blank, blank, blank. Contempt, and he says this is the worst one. Contempt is saying, what kind of moron would do? That's this superior attitude, arrogance that says you're defective. And man, you got to watch this attitude. Now, I'm
going to say this too. Sometimes you don't always just even say it. It's one of these. It could just be as simple as this, like, you just roll your eyes like the person is so dumb.
And some of you have heard us tell this story, but Anne, way back early in our marriage when our kids were really little, would tell me that I was harsh, critical. I'd roll my eyes at her.
Oh, and I would say all the time, like, you act like I'm the dumbest person in the world. And
you know what that is?
I do not.
I didn't even know what that was then, but it's contempt. She was trying to say, I feel contempt from you. And I'm like, yeah, you not. What are you talking about? She should have just gone, there's exhibit A.
And so I couldn't get Dave to see it. And so I prayed, Lord, you have to let him see it. I can't get this across to him. You have to get it across. So
we were videotaping our little boys at her parents' house 20-some years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And, it was great. And this is back when they had a camera on a tripod and a VCR thing connected to it. Some of you are old enough to remember those days. You had to carry it around. It was a tape, an actual tape. That's why they call it taping.
So he taped the kids.
And then we brought her parents in and said, hey, you got to watch this. So we're sitting down hours later and we're watching this. And it's awesome, and the kids are in it. And then, it gets to the point where the kids leave the room, and we thought the camera was turned off, but it was still on. And so on video, it captures Ann and I in a little conflict. And there I am, contempt, rolling my eyes, harshness, critical, you're sort of a jerk, I'm so smart. And it's all there on living color.
And my whole family was in the room.
And I'm running up there like, turn this off.
I was like, thank you, Jesus. And Dave was mortified.
Oh, but the best thing was, there it was.
Well,
she was right. I was showing contempt and defensiveness. 2 of the 4 horsemen, I wouldn't listen to her. And when you see it, and when a friend tells you you have a blind spot, when your spouse or even a 5-year-old can tell you,
yes.
We got to listen, because that's when we grow. And, Paul says, speak the truth in love so that we may grow to maturity in Christ. And if we don't listen to that, we'll never grow. But if we do, real growth happens when we receive truth.
Well, we've been walking together. We haven't done that ever, I don't think, but we've been walking together almost every night. And so I have just been so bothered, not just lately, but this has been an ongoing conflict with us of Dave's his
this
best
thing right
friend,
here.
His other best friend.
This little thing right here.
Yeah,
this cell
it's
phone.
called his phone. And I feel like, so we go on this walk.
I don't know why she's bothered by it. I don't know what she's talking about. You saying something?
So I've been saying, like, I feel like you're never off your devices. He's always working. And so we went on that walk, and I'm like, Lord, I don't know how to share this. Because normally when I used to talk like this, I'd bring something up and I wouldn't bring it up well. I'm just going to say that. But then Dave would stonewall. But you would stonewall. He would just be like, I'm not going to engage with it. I'm not going to listen to you. But this time it went pretty good.
It went really good.
He said it's going to take 2 days to fast from his phone, but it didn't happen.
Well,
What happened?
All our work's done on our phone. Zoom meetings. How many have been in like 50 Zoom meetings in the last week in your sweats? But no, it was a moment where she spoke truth, packaged in love. Paul says this, speak the truth in love. And God used it to say, she's pointing out something that is critical, and I need to hear that. And so attitude is everything. Okay, where did the M?
Okay, now you can all ask him how he's doing.
Yeah, don't ask me. Don't text me. I can't look at my phone. So the M is meet emotion with emotion. And I tell you what, and you can add this, fact with fact.
This is really practical and good. So
Yeah,
listen
meet
in.
emotion with emotion, fact with fact. And it basically just means this. When your spouse, when your kid or your neighbor is sharing something emotionally, don't answer with a fact.
Yeah.
Meet emotion with emotion. Pretend it's something like this. Let's say Ann went to the grocery store, which, we've done a few times, and it's a little scary. You put on the mask, the whole thing. It's a different world now.
Yeah, let me do it. So we go to the grocery store, and, I get one of those squeaky wheels. Have you ever done that one? All through the thing. And then these kids go by, and they're laughing, and my mask, I have it on. It keeps falling off.
Well, she comes home and tells me this. Tell it to me like you would.
Yeah, so I go to the store, and these people are laughing. I get to the counter. I can't find my credit card. The cashier is like backed up, and she's like, what's your problem? And I felt like the dumbest person ever. Like, I feel terrible. I felt like this is just scary and terrible.
Now, how should I respond? Here's how a lot of us respond. Well, you should go to a different store. Respond with fact, not emotion. How should we respond? Right now, you should be looking at your family and saying, meet emotion with emotion. What's she feeling? Meet that. Say, man, that must have been really hard.
So let's say, for example, one of your kids says, this pandemic really scares me. I'm scared about it right now. And let's say one of you responds as a parent.
Don't say, only 1% of people are dying.
That's fact with feeling.
Respond with, man, how's that make you feel? This is scary, isn't it? What's
scary about it?
Yeah. Get them to talk. Now, there are times where you meet fact with fact, right?
We should meet fact with fact.
Yeah.
If somebody's factual and they're laying down facts, don't go into all this feeling mode because they're more logical. This is so helpful in a conflict.
And it's very important to do with your kids.
Yes.
Because they're feeling emotions about different things. Think your high school kids didn't have a prom. They didn't have a graduation. They didn't
Their
get to
sports
finish
are
school.
canceled.
Sports, and they're feeling all these emotions. Don't say, hey, it's not that big a deal.
At least we're alive.
In the fall. Yeah, it's like media. I was on a call with NFL quarterbacks that I'm doing some mentoring with, and they were ripping each other and joking around. And at one point, I made this point about meet emotion with emotion. I get a text from one of these quarterbacks the next day and says, dude, that was a life changer for me last night. And he goes, and I'm not being sarcastic because the whole conversation was sarcastic. It was like, wow, just meeting his wife's emotion that night, and they have little kids, was a life changer for their marriage. And I know there's so much more we could say about that. We don't have time, but it's just like, man, as you're listening, by the way, listening is really key in a conflict. What are they sharing? Is it emotion? Then meet it with emotion. Are they sharing facts? Then you can meet it with fact. But don't mix those because it doesn't go well, because that means they'll feel like you don't understand me.
Yeah.
You don't know how to connect to me. And so it's critical to do that. First, start soft. Attitude is everything. Meet emotion.
We have two
with
more. We need to
emotion.
hurry.
We have 3 more.
Oh, gosh.
Here we go, and we can do these quick. I, not you. And it's a simple thing. And again, I hope you've written these down or you've got them that you can look at. Use I statements, not you statements. In other words, in a
we've shared
conflict.
this before, yeah. Instead of starting a conflict with you always, that's another word. Don't say the word always because they'll say like, oh, there's one time that I didn't. So don't start it with you and don't use the word always or never. Instead, you start it with I. I feel like, because it just helps the person not be defensive.
Yeah, and I feel this when this happens.
Right.
Not you, never, you always. It's
Yeah.
just, it's a finger point.
And I'm telling you, parents, teach your kids this now because they'll carry it then into their future relationships too.
Okay, the L, and we're moving quick, is life words, not death words.
We've shared this a lot too.
Many times. It's simply, Proverbs 18:21 is a powerful truth The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit.
And I love Gottman because he's so practical. We've said this before, but it takes 5 positives to negate 1 negative. So if you say 5 positive things, that will help eliminate that negative. But that negative just kind of sits with us. You know that because many of us have been wounded by words or something that happened years ago with 1 negative comment.
And I tell you what, Gottman says this, and it's really true. The best families, the healthiest families have a 5-to-1 ratio. They've studied it. It's like there's 5 positives to every 1 negative. 1 negative is so damaging. And again, the power of the tongue. That's why Solomon wrote this. You and I can choose how to speak to our spouse and to our kids.
That would be really good with our kids and our friends, our spouses. If you have a negative to say, I would say hold on to that until you said some positive things. Make some deposits of positive into their lives.
Yeah. Okay, last one. FAMIL and the Y. You know how hard it is to find a Y word?
This one doesn't fit there.
It fits. I think it ends up fitting. It's yield to Jesus. And it's really where we started. But in the conflict, here's what I encourage you to do. Pray first. Before you speak, before you think, before you act, pray first. What's that? I'm yielding. I'm surrendered. Actually,
I always say go to God first.
Yeah. The definition of yield is to surrender to another. So surrender to Jesus in the middle of this thing and keep short accounts. You don't want to store things away. That becomes toxic. You yield to Jesus, and you may need to yield to your spouse or to your family member and say, I'm going to serve. I'm going to try to understand your point, your side, so that we can get to a reconciliation.
And let me talk about that just for a second, because I think keeping short accounts is really important for marriage, for kids, for all of that. Because I didn't do that for so long, because I didn't want to make a big deal out of everything, and I wanted to not criticize Dave or whatever, and so I would just keep it in. And then it would come up again in my mind, and I would keep it in. But then you know what happened? I would then just blow up. And so I would defeat the whole first point that we had. So if you have something that you feel like, should I say it? Yield to God. But if it keeps coming up in your head, then it's time to talk about it. But go to God first and ask him how to talk about it.
And last thing we'll say, and then we just want to pray, and then we're going to worship with a song that I love. That is, here's the bridge. I'm not enough unless you come.
That's so good.
And that's a line that's so true. Is we don't have what in ourselves enough to reconcile, to do family or relationships or conflict or the laundry the way we want unless he comes. And that's what yield to Jesus means, that you invite him in. And when I say pray first, when we say pray first, it isn't just pray first, pray throughout. In the middle of the conflict, say, Jesus, I'm struggling to even be soft. I need you to come and get peace in here so that I can express peace out there.
And I think, too, I just feel like we don't believe God enough for it. We don't pray to him. We don't expect him to answer. Because maybe you've been praying for years like, I don't see anything happening. I don't see any changes. But let's expect God to do some big things in our relationships as we have our relationship with him be first. Like really ask him, like yield your life to him, yield your marriage, yield your friendships, yield your relationship with your kids and say, God, I want you to answer. I need to see you in this. I'm expecting you to do big things.
And the beautiful thing is when he does things in you, us as a family, he then sends us as a family to impact our neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to do, even in this pandemic, is meet us where we are and then use us to meet others as his hands and feet where they are. Wherever God sends you is your call. It could be right down the street as you take a walk today or tomorrow, and it's a neighbor that you stand 6 feet away and share the love of Jesus that you have felt and experienced in your own life and in your family with them.
It's been so interesting because we've been with Cody and Jenna during this thing, and Bryce has been, their 1.5-year-old has been with us. And it's so interesting. Every single night, you know what he wants to do before we eat? He puts his hands out like this to pray. 15-month-old. And he's like, pray, pray. He can't wait. And so as a family, if this would be like this praying together of really uniting together, of grabbing your family's hands before you go to bed at night and say, God, we give our lives to you, we give our future to you, we trust you, and we yield to you.
And we went too long. We're sorry about that. We went 4 minutes over, and we're going to go another 30 seconds. So let's pray. Father God, thank you for who you are, and even the fact that you're in the middle of this. And you're in the middle of our family room with our families and single people and blended families and all kinds.
Yeah.
You are right here with us. And of all the things we talked about, the only thing that really matters is yielding to you, surrendering to you, and maybe getting on our knees before we look at the news and look at your word and ask you to bring peace in us so that we can bring peace outside of us. So Jesus, we surrender to you. We invite you to use this interruption to help us trust you, and we ask you to work in a mighty way in our hearts and in our families so that we can impact others for your kingdom. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Come on, we sing. Can't go back to the beginning. Can't control what tomorrow will bring. But I know here in the middle is the place where you promised to be. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Sing as I walk. As I walk now through the valley, let your love rise above every fear. Like the sun shaping the shadow, in my weakness your glory appears. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all not enough. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? I'm not enough. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Will you meet me here again? Yes, Jesus, will you meet me here again?
What a great message of encouragement from Dave and Ann on how we're supposed to maintain our focus on the things that really matter in our lives during these unprecedented times. And what a great idea and thought that God, who loves us so much, has given us so many hints and instructions on how we're supposed to do that.
Another part of tonight that was so great was the worship. Matthias and the worship team led us through some great songs. Hopefully you had an opportunity to sing along. We really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, even singing with you, Jim.
Stop it. But what really hit me the most on those last couple of songs is the topic of the lyrics on how we are not in control during these times, but the God who loves us is.
Yeah. And speaking of not being in control, how about trying to navigate marriage and kids at home? So to help you out with that, we have an event on Friday night at 9 o'clock. It's called Virtual Date Night. And on Instagram Live, Andrew Kim and his wife Robin are going to lead us through and give us some great tips and some hope and some laughs on navigating this chaotic time of marriage and kids. So put the kids to get to bed, grab a beverage, snuggle up on the couch, get comfy for half an hour of interactive fun on Instagram Live at 9 o'clock this Friday night. You're going to love it.
So till next time, Kensington, stay at home, stay safe, and definitely stay connected.
Bye, Kensington.
See ya.